We'll do a roll call of the Planning Commission members. Just why don't you start? We'll work our way over. Just say your name and.
Rich Blankish, member at large.
Jason Crone, District 3.
Jeff Bertram, member at large.
Ken Mossman, District 4.
Jason Wienerman, District 1.
Sean Blackburn and Mike Perrell could not be with us tonight, so 2 members are absent. And Commissioner Persky could not be with us, so Commissioner Jeff Mergen is the alternate from the county board, and he's with us tonight. Welcome, Commissioner Mergen. First item on the agenda. How we do this is when your agenda item comes up, please come up to the last 2 chairs, and we'll have the staff report, and then we'll go through some things, and then we'll ask you to identify yourself for the record, and then we'll get into the questions and do the findings of fact and everything else. So the first item, agenda number 1 is Lamar OCI North, St. Cloud, and we'll have the staff report to start with for a zoning ordinance change.
All right, good evening, Planning Commission members. This is a request submitted by Lamar for a conditional use permit to replace an existing off-premise sign or billboard in the commercial zoning district. This property is in section 1 of Grove Township. It's on the north side of I-94, just east of Melrose. The Planning Commission and County Board actually granted a CUP for the sign replacement in 2018, but the work was not done, so the permits have expired. So they're asking for the permit to do the same work again this time. It's a non-conforming billboard. It doesn't meet setbacks to other billboards, but the ordinance does allow replacement. They had gotten a permit from MnDOT. Actually, they have a current permit from MnDOT. So as long as they get the sign replaced before that expires, they're covered with MnDOT. Let's see. It's a pretty straightforward request, I guess. So if the Planning Commission were to recommend approval, we would just have a couple of conditions suggested. One being that they do have a active permit from MnDOT or a current permit from MnDOT for the sign replacement. And 2, requesting a certificate of survey submitted before we issue the construction permit. They are pretty close to their property line and close to the MnDOT right-of-way. They don't know where the property pins are to 100% accurately identify that, so that's why we're suggesting that condition. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer did a site visit on October 6th. Members, if you did a site visit, say yes when I call your name. If you did not, say no. Rich Blankish?
Yes.
Jason Crone?
Yes.
The chair did. Ken?
No, I went last time.
Okay. And Jason?
Yes.
Okay. So we did site visits. The applicant, you can come up, yep, right up there in the chair. State your name and address for the record, please.
1814 Oak Grove Road, Southwest St. Cloud.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to add anything to the staff report? One question I guess I have is why wasn't the work done, do you know, after you received the CUP?
Just staffing issues and things of that nature that just fell through the cracks, unfortunately. So Lamar does take responsibility for that.
Okay. Are there any questions from the Planning Commission? We'll go to the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, just
Go
a
ahead.
question. So the DOT permit is valid through November 1st, which is 10 days from now. Will the work be done in 10 days, or will you be applying for another DOT permit?
I would suspect we'd do another permit.
Okay. If the DOT permit, question for the staff, if the DOT permit expires, does this expire, or do we wait until they get a new one?
The county permit would not expire. That's valid for a year.
We'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody here or online that wishes to say anything about this agenda item? Anybody here or via Zoom? There was no written testimony
There was not.
Okay. So one last
Uh,
time, is there anybody here or anybody online? If not, the motion's in order.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll
Second.
second it. Oop,
Motion's been made by Jason, seconded by the other Jason. Close the public hearing. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Sign, public hearing is closed. Item discussion, are there any questions or discussion items now?
You asked my 2 questions I was going to have, so.
Perfect. Okay. Well, then seeing none, we should be able to do the findings. Number 1, is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, Jason Weiderman here. Yes, it is. It's consistent with the Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439, sections 4.8, 5.1.2A, subsection 8, 7.25.7, and 9.10.5H.
Number 2, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List of sections.
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I do believe it does under the business goals, rural business policies, and that's number 1. Rural businesses should not alter the rural character of the neighborhood and should not create negative impacts on the public health, safety, and general welfare of adjacent property owners. It's repair of an existing sign, so not a lot of difference there.
Number 3, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, Rich Blankish, it is compatible. It's in an area that is having industrial expansion, and it's in a transition area by the city of Melrose that within 20 years, that expansion could possibly take place in that direction.
4, how has the applicant demonstrated that the standards criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, Jason Weinerman, the 2 conditions, and the applicant has indicated he has no problem with the current conditions or seeking an extension or secondary ballot for the DOT permit.
5, other issues pertinent to the matter, if they apply, say something, township, city input? I don't think there was any township input.
No, there was not.
Federal, state, local permits, it'll be the highway, Minnesota MnDOT permit. Environmental concerns, groundwater, surface water, that's not relevant. Information submitted regarding impact property values, we received nothing. Public health, safety, traffic generation impacts, not applicable. Public service facilities, including schools, parks, streets, again, not applicable. Financial assurance required to guarantee reclamation. Not applicable. Other would be they received the permit and it just lapsed, and they're here to basically redo it. So with that, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I'd make a motion. We recommend approval with the 2 proposed conditions.
And I will second that.
Okay, motion's been made by Jason, second by Rich. Recommend approval of the county board. It would be on their October 26th county board meeting. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The recommendation is passed. Item number 2, consider a request submitted by Chris and Melissa Steffes. If I'm saying that right, I'm sorry if I'm not. And Jaylee Nolting of Bolus, and Kelly Ellen of Sartell to amend the subdivision agreement for River's Edge. We'll hear the staff report.
All right, this request is to amend the subdivision agreement recorded with the plat of River's Edge. The request is to remove the requirement to have a community sewage treatment system. So the request involves all 3 lots within the plat, lots 1, 2, and 3. This plat is south of 57th Avenue and north of Walleye Road on the Mississippi River in section 17 of Brockway Township. The River's Edge plat was recorded in 2007, and at that time, the plan was to install a community septic system that would serve lots 2 and 3, and if desired, would also serve lot 1. Since that time, the current owners have interest in just having their own septic system and not a joint system. They've actually gone to Brockway Township and discussed this, and the township has been supportive of that as well. They had set up a subordinate service district to take over the septic, and they are supportive of dissolving that as long as the property owners go through proper channels, as you saw in their resolution. So lot 1 has its own septic, and that was done and set up when the plat was created. Lots 2 and 3 now have hired a septic designer, and they've located space on each lot for a primary and an alternative septic system, so they can accommodate that within their own lots. Let's see. So the property does have floodplain on it, and so they're aware of those restrictions and building within those restrictions, which we'll get into a bit more in the next item as well. Let's see. Access to the property. So right now, all 3 lots are addressed off 57th Avenue. Lot 3 is wishing to come in from the south from Walleye Road. We know that Walleye Road doesn't meet the elevation requirements for floodplain, per the floodplain ordinance. So the property owners are aware of that, and they're working through their options. Either raise the road, which is quite a bit, it's over a foot, request a variance, which they may be doing, or possibly coming in from the north. So those are things that they're working through, which I'll let the Planning Commission ask questions more on that later if you have more, and discuss that at that time. But in regards to the request to amend the subdivision agreement, which relates to the septic system, if the Planning Commission does recommend approval of that, we have a number of conditions we're suggesting. One would be that the septic locations are approved by the department. That has occurred. So we have had a chance to review those in detail, and those have been approved earlier this week. Number 2, we would request an amended declaration of restriction be recorded, and that's a document that basically records those septic locations and says that those sites need to be protected and preserved for septic use. And then we would request the amended subdivision agreement. So we would carry through the items from the original subdivision agreement, and then we would propose crossing out or deleting the items speaking to the community septic, and then we would replace it with a requirement that in order to protect their septic sites for sewage treatment use, the 2 soil treatment areas on each lot shall be staked and roped off before any ground disturbing activity. We would add a statement that access to lot 3 shall be at or above an elevation of not more than 2 feet below the regulatory flood protection elevation. And if Walleye Road doesn't meet this requirement, then access to lot 3 shall be from 57th Avenue to the north. We are requesting an amended easement through lot 2 to clarify that so there's an existing easement recorded through lot 2 for lot 3 to get to their lot. And it was recorded with the original plat. We're requesting an updated easement be recorded to clearly state it's for the benefit of lot 3. The current easement isn't super clear in that regard. And then confirmation from Brockway Township that the subordinate service district has been fully dissolved. And then construction permits and septic permits won't be issued for lots 2 and 3 until those requirements have been met. That is all I have on this one right now.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer did a site visit on October 6th. Again, if you did a site visit, say yes. If you did not, say no. Rich Blankish?
Yes.
Jason Crone?
Yes.
I did. Ken?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Applicant introductions. Who's ever going to speak? Come up to the chairs right there. State your name and address for the record, please. Who's ever going to speak, just everybody say their name and address at one time, please.
Kelly Aylen, 1970 Sandstone Loop South, Sartell.
Mike Nolting, 17517 Marina Court, Bolus.
Dan Kurowski, 716 Falcon Court, Sartell.
There's a button in the middle, yeah, that you push where it says push, that the green light comes on, okay? Thank you. Welcome. Anything you want to add at this point to the staff report?
I actually think everything was explained fairly well. We did go through the Brockway Township on Tuesday night, and they did agree. They thought it was a great idea to dissolve this community septic. We do have, and I know Jen has all the drawings, excuse me, of the primary and secondary sites on each property. The Steffes property, lot number 1, I believe that is, with the house already on it, had that already drawn out. We went through WATAB, both Elans and I went through WATAB and have the drawings for both 2 and 3 with the primary and secondary. There's plenty of location for both of those. Even if Steve and Kelly have to come through the north side down into lot 3, there's still enough room there for both primary and secondary locations.
We'll open up the public hearing. We'll open up the public hearing. Is anybody here or online that wants to share anything on this item? Agenda item number 2. Anybody here or online? One last time, anybody here? Okay, motion be in order.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, motion to close the public hearing.
Motion's been made by Jason to close the public hearing.
Jason Crone will second.
Jason Crone seconds it. Any discussion? I assume we have no letters.
That's correct.
Okay. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public hearing is closed. Discussion from the members.
This would be a question for staff or anybody that has recommended, can remember back to when this was put in place. Was there a reason outside of the developer's wishes to make this community septic?
Yeah, yep. So previously, this was the site of River's Edge Restaurant, and there was a restaurant there and a large gravel parking area. At the time the plat was done, they weren't able to locate suitable septic locations on Lot 3 due to the surface that was there. So that's why they opted to do a community system, which was going to be located on Lot 2. Since then, they have done more exploratory work with a septic designer. There is a different part in the sewage treatment rule, which allows a little more flexibility in the sites that you can approve in a plat. So those two components together, the new exploration, looking further into different locations on the property, and a little bit different, a change in the Minnesota sewage treatment rule have allowed now that they can support 2 sites on Lot 3.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from commission members? If not, there's no findings on this one. It's a straight up recommend approval or denial.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, I recommend that we provide a recommendation to the full board to remove the requirements of the community sewage septic system from the subdivision agreement.
Okay.
With the 3 conditions?
Yes.
I'll second that, Jason Crone.
Jason moves, Jason seconds. Any discussion on those motions? And second the motion? Ken? Oh, it looks like you're going to say something. Okay, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion recommendation passes. And you may as well stay there for item number 3, which is conditional use permit request for a major shoreline alteration. We'll have the staff report on that.
Mr. Chair, members of
Nick
the
Newman's going to do that.
Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission, this is a major shoreline alteration request for topographic alteration, partially within floodway, and then it is also more than 100 cubic yards within twice the setback, which is why it's in front of you here this evening. The lot currently had about 9% impervious lot coverage. Some of that concrete towards the river has been removed, and it's less than that now. Site's relatively flat until it gets to the steep slope at the riverbank. Where the project is proposed, it is fairly flat. Floodplain and floodway is present on the entire lot. That inset map kind of shows where that blue is mapped floodway area, and the yellow is all 100-year floodplain. We just talked about the sewage treatment system and some of the possibilities with that. There's no active erosion on the property really at this time. The application is essentially proposing 209 cubic yards of material to be removed from the mapped floodway and 201 yards of fill to be placed within the mapped floodway. And then there's 464 cubic yards of topographic alteration outside of 20 feet of the proposed structure that would be a part of a construction site permit, which would be separate from this request. It's really essentially just that material that's part of the request tonight. There is an infiltration basin that's included as part of this application to control excess water from where the proposed structure would go and any other impervious surfaces. And then there's native vegetation proposed around the perimeter of the infiltration basin, and that vegetation and other included vegetation that's proposed as part of their plan, if they do construction, would meet the minimum vegetation requirements required in order to do a shoreline project. There is one proposed condition. If the Planning Commission were to recommend approval, we would recommend that a letter of credit, cash, escrow, or bond for 125% of the costs for the planting would be required so that we can ensure that the plantings do take place to meet the minimum vegetation standards for the lot. We did not receive any written correspondence specific to this item, and that is all I have.
Okay, thank you, Nick. For the site visits, we'll use the same ones for item number 2. Obviously, it's the same parcel. Applicant introductions, there's one new person, but why don't you just restate your names again for the record, please? Names and addresses.
Okay. Kelly Aylen, 1970 Sandstone Loop South, Sartell.
Steve Aylen, 1970 Sandstone Loop South, Sartell.
And Dan Kurowski, 716 Falcon Court, Sartell.
Thank you. Anything you want to add to the staff report?
The only thing that I want to point out, Dan Kurowski, I'm the builder, BCI Construction. So we were just, the overall plan is an improvement and decreases overall runoff and cleaner water that would infiltrate into the river system, into the water system. So that's the only thing I wanted to point out.
Okay. We'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here or via Zoom that would want to say something about item number 3? Anyone in the audience or on Zoom that would want to share comments? Seeing and hearing none, motion's in order.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing. Jason Crone.
I will second that. Ken Mossman.
Okay. Jason moves, Ken seconds, close the public hearing. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Public hearing is closed. Discussion by members. Any questions anybody's got or comments?
Go ahead, Jason.
Nick, just a question here. So on their site description, they've got retaining walls 0 to 3 and 0 to 4 feet. If they happen to exceed that during construction, and put in walls in excess of 4 feet, would that be a violation of the ordinance?
No, it would not be, because those are located within 20 feet of where the structure is. So they would not be able to construct those retaining walls unless they were approved for the construction site permit. And then at that point, anything, any walls or any material movement within 20 feet of the structure as permitted would be authorized under that construction site permit.
Okay, thank you.
It probably would be pointless if you said 4 feet, that you'd go higher than that.
Well, the intention is to keep it at that or lower, whatever it's going to take. We don't want to obstruct the view.
You may be able to do it, but it would make sense for everybody to identify what you are going to do
Oh, yeah,
now before we just give them an open
exactly.
Our
permit.
intentions are to build per plan and spec, so.
Okay, that's helpful. Any other questions?
Well, this would be a comment or a question, but as I'm looking at this, it looks like no, I mean, obviously the major concern here would be is if the river comes up, does water have somewhere to go, and how is it being directed? It looks like it's kind of unaffected, if not improved. So to me, am I seeing that right? Did everyone see that kind of the same way? All right.
Yeah, that's the intent of the design, so.
Yeah.
And my thought was, it seems like they're moving a lot of dirt around, but if anybody's built a house, you tend to move a lot of dirt first away and then back in and all over. So it's just
Relatively
normal building.
unchanged at the end.
And we're hoping to have the dirt from there go underneath the house to get it up.
Okay. We'll do the findings then. Number 1, is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
I'm not sure how to comment on this one. I know a major shoreland is allowed. It's part of 439. I just am not sure of the specific sections.
Under the description on the staff report on the first page, be sections 10.1.7 and 10.2.14D.
So this is consistent. Thank you for that, Nick.
Just real quick, where was that on page 1, Nick?
Under the description of the request.
Thank
third
you. I've
sentence.
got it now. Thank you. There it is.
2, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List the sections.
Mr. Chair, Jason Weirman here. I believe it does. So it adheres to adopted plans to maintain the county's resources under Water Resources Policy number 1. And also under Nature Goals number 2, ensure the reasonable and responsible use of the county's natural resources, including surface water. And also number 3 is recognizing the significance of water resources in the county. So this will be working to protect those during the installation.
Number 3, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I believe it is compatible. There's this is going to be a residence built, and there's some other houses in that area.
4, how has the applicant demonstrated the standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, they've submitted plans and there's conditions, or one condition, I guess, in place to assure that they'll do some of the work that's been discussed.
5, other issues, township input. Rockaway certainly was aware of it. I don't think they specifically said anything on this one, but they did the one before. But, so they're aware of it. Federal, state, local permits. Just the normal shoreline permits will apply. Environment concerns, groundwater, surface water, air quality, wellhead, groundwater, surface water, obviously are addressed. Information submitted regarding property values, there was none. Public health, safety, traffic generation, really not applicable. Public service facilities, including schools, parks, streets, utilities, not applicable. Financial assurance required. Yes, there is a bond, letter of credit, or an escrow bond required as part. That's the only condition that's on the item. And then the other would be obviously agenda item 2 played into agenda item 3. So with that, motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I make a motion we recommend approval with the one proposed condition.
Motion's been made, seconded by Rich, made by Jason, recommend approval of the county board for their October 26th county board meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The recommendation is granted. Good luck. Agenda item 4 will be continued until November 18th meeting. I guess we don't have to do anything to continue it or anything. Do we have to say a date certain or
We should
anything?
have
Well, I
a-
just did.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to continue it?
Guess it wouldn't hurt.
Yes, please. It will likely be to the next meeting, but let's be formal about that.
And if it isn't, then we'll make a motion at that meeting to continue to another 30 days. We have 60 days, right?
Or can we just say a future meeting?
Well, I think you have to have
Or
a
does it
date
have to s-
specific, don't
okay.
you? Probably be safe. Let's do it to November, and then if we have to continue it again, we'll do it to December then. Okay,
I'll make a motion we move to the November meeting.
okay? November 18th meeting, 7 o'clock.
I'll second that.
Okay, Ken seconds it. Motion's been made, seconded to continue item number 4 to the November 18th Planning Commission meeting at 7 o'clock. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item is continued. Item number 5, consider a plat, Roses Ponderosa. We'll have the staff report.
All right, this is a request for a 7-lot plat. Let me back up, a 9-lot plat. 7 lots will be residential for home, and 2 lots will be outlots that would be allowed to have an accessory structure on them. This plat was submitted by Rose Shalanka of Avon, Minnesota. It is in sections 24 and 25 of St. Wendell Township. It's on the south side of County Road 4 and on the west side of 83rd Avenue. So the property in total is 69 acres, and it was rezoned almost 2 years ago now to R10. So the 69 acres in an R10 zone does allow for 7 residential lots. And then the 2 outlots will be restricted that they can't have a home on them. Septic sites have been located and approved for each lot. Each lot does have room to build and meet all setbacks. The soil borings that were done out there do show there's groundwater table within 6 feet of the ground surface, so we will restrict the bottom floor elevation for a home. It'll have to be 1 foot above the groundwater table, or they could install a groundwater drainage system. There's many wetlands, as you can see, which are shown on the preliminary plat in green. The 2 large wetlands require a 50-foot setback due to the wetland type, and then all the smaller wetlands have a 25-foot setback. There's no feedlots that we have to worry about in the area. Access to the development, lot 1 contains the current building site. There is a driveway off of County Road 4, and then they also show proposed access off of 83rd Avenue. The County Highway Department has recommended that lot access be off of 83rd and not County Road 4. The other thing that comes into play is that very small portion of that driveway is on the neighbor's property, and we haven't been able to find record of any easement for that. So that's another reason why the access is going to likely end up being off 83rd Avenue, unless they can find an easement and the highway department's okay with it. But that comment is in the highway comments, which do get recorded with the plat. Stormwater management, being that this plat in total will create over an acre of new impervious, they did develop a stormwater management plan, and that plan shows each lot will have their own individual basins to collect the stormwater runoff. So some lots have one basin, some lots will have multiple basins, depending on how long the driveways are and the direction of runoff. So each of those lot owners is going to be responsible for putting those in when they build their home. And that's all detailed out in the subdivision agreement. Let's see, so there's a mortgage on the plat, and they'll need a consent to plat from the bank, which they have obtained already. There's an unnamed tributary to the Sauk River, and that runs through the northwest corner of the property. So land within 300 feet of that is in shoreland. There's a bit of the plat within shoreland, not a whole lot of it. Possibly just one home will end up being in shoreland. There's a park dedication fee required for this plat, and that's a total of $6,000 that has been paid. St. Wendell Township did review and approve the plat July 6th. Drainage and utility easements, so we got comments from Stearns Electric, and they were recommending easements along all the property lines, and that's what Plating Committee agreed to as well. So the recommendation is to have drainage and utility easements along all property lines and the roadways. So if Planning Commission recommends approval, we would suggest adding on the conditions that Plating Committee recommended. Do you want me to go through those all? Please. Okay. So there would be a declaration of restriction required that would require protection of the 2 septic sites on each lot, that they are not disturbed. There would be a subdivision agreement requiring construction site best management practices during construction, requiring those septic sites to be staked and roped off before any ground disturbing activity, requiring the bottom floor elevation of the homes to be a foot above groundwater table, or install an engineered groundwater drainage system. Related to wetlands, the subdivision agreement would state that there was a wetland delineation completed, subject to Minnesota statute, and that was approved and is valid for 5 years from September 16th of 2020. It would state the 25-foot or 50-foot structure setback from wetlands is required in accordance with the county zoning ordinance. Wetlands shall be identified on the construction site plan and protected with silt fence before ground disturbance. And then related to the stormwater management, it would state that the developer is made aware that an MPDS construction stormwater permit is required. That involves creation of a SWIP and a permit from the state. Will state construction of the infiltration basins is the responsibility of the property owner in conjunction with construction on the lot. The basins are designed to treat stormwater runoff from the amount of impervious surfaces that are listed herein, and if the landowner increases the amount of impervious beyond this, they would have to have a new engineered plan to show how much bigger they need to make their basins. The basins have to be constructed in accordance with the approved plan, and then it goes on to detail what the plan showed as far as the slopes and depths and such. We will attach that to the subdivision agreement. The grading of the house sites shall direct runoff toward the infiltration basin. A grading plan with proposed contours may be required when they submit their construction site permit application. Then we will request a letter of credit, cash escrow, or a bond for 125% of what it costs for them to put in their basins. And we'll require that before we issue their construction site permit. And then once it's done, they'd have that inspected and approved by an engineer, and then we would give them their money back. Long-term maintenance of those infiltration basins is the responsibility of the property owner within the plat and shall be in accordance with the operation and maintenance plan that's approved and attached. Lastly, in the subdivision agreement, we'd have a statement that the plat is located in an agricultural area, so future buyers may be exposed to sights, sounds, smells, and conditions of modern agriculture. I mentioned earlier we'd have a restriction for the equivalent land area of outlots A and B, stating that they are not allowed to have a home on them. A water supply verification will be recorded with the plat. Let's see. And that will show that there's the nitrate level is suitable in this area, and they have provided a water test from a neighboring property which shows adequate or a safe nitrate level. The highway comments will be recorded with the final plat. An approved stormwater management plan is required before final plat approval. I mentioned that drainage and utility easements are required along 83rd Avenue, County Road 4, and the side and rear property lines. Verify if there's a recorded easement for the existing driveway to County Road 4. Show the easements of record on the final plat, and then the consent to plat is required for the mortgage with the Central Minnesota Credit Union. That's all I have.
Jennifer visited the site in August and in October. Members, if you visited the site, say yes when I call your name. Rich?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
Ken did.
Yes.
Jason did. Okay. Applicant introductions. State your name and address for the record, please.
Eisenchenk, 14724 325th Street, St. Joseph, Minnesota.
Rose Shalanka, 12635 County Road 3, Avon, Minnesota.
Okay, thank you. Anything you want to add to the staff report?
I don't think so. It's been a long time coming. It's, with the COVID, and my mask is due to be a positive test about 3 weeks ago, so I don't want to spread that around to anybody else. So, yeah, it's just good to be back.
Okay. Item discussion for members at this point.
Mr.
Jason?
Chair, so the SWCD had comments related to the groundwater sensitivity. Was that included in any of the stormwater conditions?
Jennifer?
Yes, thank you for that comment. I didn't point that out. That is taken into consideration in the stormwater plan review. Now, the stormwater, the basins, due to the shallow groundwater table out here, the basins won't be able to be infiltration basins, which is good when you have sensitive, high sensitivity to groundwater contamination. So they won't be infiltration basins, so that will minimize the what is going into that water. Yep.
And Greg Berg is on the planning committee, and there was a general discussion on those items.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, quick question. If I understand it right, once the properties are sold, all the stormwater management, the responsibility and onus goes on to the new property owner, right, to
Correct.
manage and maintain?
That's correct.
Okay.
And we discussed that as well. My concern was, do they know that when they buy the lot? Well, that comes to their attention during the permitting process, and it's part of the abstract, I believe, as well. So they will be made aware that they're going to be responsible for it.
And it sounded, Jennifer, you mentioned that they actually have to have that stormwater done before they actually get the permit, correct? Did I hear you right on that?
Well, they don't have to have the basin installed, but they have to show us where it's going to go and provide a financial guarantee to ensure it gets put in correctly. Yep, and then that's part of their permit, part of their conditions on their permit. They have to get that installed, and then we give their money back once they give us a letter from the engineer saying, yeah, it was put in correctly.
Okay. Perfect, thanks.
Okay, did I hear, they have to have it installed before they start breaking ground for the house, right?
No, they just have to have the plan.
Oh, because it said that has to be there, so if any runoff comes in the excavating for the house, it would run toward it. Well, it'll have to be there if it's going to have to run toward it, right?
Well, yeah, so there's a couple of things. There will be requirements for erosion control. So before they can start digging, they're going to have to put silt fence around their site and downgrade from any areas that are going to be graded or excavated. So there's the erosion control piece of it, and then there's the basin piece of it, and they'll have to. I don't know the timing of that. I would assume when it's done with the mass grading of the site. They're grading the site for the basement and the pond at the same time, but I don't know exactly the order they do that in. Yeah. The erosion control practices are meant to capture the runoff during construction, and then the basin will capture, future runoff from the driveway, from the roofs, the house, and that kind of a thing.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Jason?
so there's potential for 7 additional homes with driveways off of, is it 83?
Yep.
So we could see substantial increase in traffic from 83 going to 4. Did the Planning Commission talk about that? Or, because I'm thinking we could realistically see 14 new additional vehicles coming off that road twice a day with people going to and from work. So that's a slug of traffic hitting County Road 4.
The highway engineer staff person was there, and there was general discussion about it. And, in the scope of things, I think we discussed there was going to be an increase, but that is a lot. However, it's not, it wasn't alarming, I guess, to them.
They didn't have concern that it would overburden the road carrying capacity. They also didn't have any recommendations or requirements for any turn lanes be constructed.
And remember, this is St. Wendell Township. That's got a lot of other stuff going on. So we'll open up the public hearing. If there's anyone here from the public and or step up here to the podium or on Zoom, identify yourself one way or another. Before we get there, I'm not sure if the folks that submitted the slide presentation, are they here? That's him? Yep. Okay, just, yep, it should be. Push that button in the middle where it says push.
Okay, there we go.
But my point is, excuse me, before you start, we got the slide presentation, we got the county's response to that. So in order to keep moving, we have other issues. We probably won't go into the same detail as this is because we all got this days ago. We all reviewed it. We're all aware of it. It will be entered into the public record. So you can spend a couple of minutes reviewing that, or if you have new information, otherwise we're not going to rehash this.
What I have to say is, in addition, I will not read the slides to you. I promise I will be brief.
Okay.
And
first, brief is 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then thank you to the environmental staff for,
who is he? I'm sorry, you didn't say your name and address.
Kenneth Schindel, 33723 83rd Avenue, St. Joseph, Minnesota. I own the 10-acre lots directly to the south of this proposed plat, and all of the swamp there, all the wetlands flows through my property, which I'll show that very shortly, sir.
Thank you.
And so, first of all, I believe that the developer deceived the public by requesting a 10-acre zoning and then platting 5 acres. I agreed with platting the 5 acres to the east of 83rd Avenue. So then when she zoned it, or requested 10 acres, I did a 10-acre R10. I did not object and did not come in to say anything about that. However, then all of a sudden, she's got 5-acre sites, and I think that's kind of deceiving the public. But so then we'll go into the next one. Next slide. Now on the next slide, you'll see that the minimum lot size in the ordinance in St. Wendell is 10 acres minimum lot size, except in R1 and RT. Now, and I know the St. Wendell Board approved this, however, there was no public discussion on it, and St. Wendell does not send out an agenda or request public input, so I had no input to the St. Wendell Town Board. And then when we go beyond that, we go to the next slide, please. I asked, okay, so how does this handled? And I called one of the board members of St. Wendell and was informed that they kind of rely on the county to implement and to enforce the ordinances. So I would expect Stearns County to enforce the ordinance that's in the memorandum of understanding between St. Wendell and the Stearns County. So on this slide, the permitted buildings, you reference the outlots for A and B. Well, they will not have a residential entitlement to them, in which case any buildings allowed on those lots will be considered accessory buildings. Well, in accordance with paragraph 3.2 on page 3-1 of Ordinance 439, it clearly says that, and I quote, "A structure on the same lot with and of a nature customary, incidental, and subordinate to the principal use or structure." So in this case, there is no residence. So how can you have an accessory building to a residence? Now, I get it if the neighbor buys the lot and puts a residential accessory building on it, but there can be no residential accessory building without a residence. Next slide, please. Obviously, I'm very concerned about the runoff because, like I said, it flows into my property. Okay, so now you'll notice on the proposed plat, there's one building on each lot site. Now, I don't know anybody that goes into the country and doesn't put up accessory buildings. Yet I assume, and this may be wrong, but the impervious area that's planned for that area is for what's on that. It includes those driveways and one building. So I think that it's reasonable to expect the new owners to put up accessory buildings, so the basins should be constructed to allow for extra stormwater. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the actually on the drawing. Oh, I should say that when it comes to the wetlands out there, and I'm going to talk about the drawings. Okay, first of all, because the drawing in the civil plan doesn't show the ditch connecting the largest wetland to the rest of the wetland, and all of that flows through my property. So I believe that you may have received a false impression of the amount of stormwater that flows through those, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then I want to mention that there is no ditch agreement for the ditches in the wetland area. Next slide, please.
Remember, I said we weren't going to go through the whole slide.
Yes, sir.
So,
yes, sir. I'll be very brief.
Thank you.
This is the ditch I'm talking about. Drains to there, and into there. Next slide, please. So now you get a sight of where it goes. This was from stormwater runoff, about 2 inches of rainfall. That's my property. So any increase at all will put that over my driveway. Next slide, please. Now, here comes the part I'm especially concerned about, and the two buildings that are planned on the outlots will be just 30 feet away from the road. Okay, everybody knows that a pole barn in the country is probably going to be made out of metal. 2 of them within 30 feet of 83rd Avenue. That's not what I call a residential appearance. Next slide, please. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here, sir, and these are the actions I recommend. Now, if you have any questions for me.
Planning Commission members, do you have any questions? And again, this will be entered into the record. The staff, I assume you shared that with him, that your responses?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we did.
So, and we saw the responses to his questions and then your questions, and some of this falls back on the township, and, you know, a variety of different answers there. So,
Quick question
Will I see the responses you made to these slides?
if you didn't, they certainly can give you a copy of them.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we gave a response. The slideshow that I sent to you, we provided the response to, and then Mr. Schindel actually sent an updated slideshow.
So the updated slideshow was different than this one?
Yep.
A quick question for Ken. If you were to look, it sounds like you've got a few things that you have concerns with. If you were looking at which one was the most important to you based on where your property's at, which one of those is it?
Well, based on my property, it would be well, for value, it's look at the neighborhood, but for my personal property, it's the stormwater runoff. And I didn't mention this, but as I interpret the plan, it's planned, and I don't know how to read all that, but it talks about 2-year and 10-year runoff calculations. Yet floodplain insurance and everything is based on a 100-year and a 500-year plan. So 2 years and 10 years doesn't give you much look back for how much groundwater is really going to flow through my property. Yep. And besides mine, I don't know if he's here tonight, but my neighbor Ferreira's, it flows through my property into their property across Oak Road, and Oak Road recently, they had to replace the culvert there because of the washout. There was so much water coming through that it washed out the ground, and it wound up, they had to replace the culvert because the road was caving in on the sides. And I'm afraid the same thing will happen.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here from the public wishes to share some comments? Or Zoom? Anyone else wishing to share comments? Looks like Supervisor Stick is making his way up. Name and address for the record, Carl, please.
I'm Carl Stitch in Reynolds Township, 36327 County Road 4, St. Joseph, Minnesota. Now, I got in on this here after it was presented in front of the Township Board, and according to what they told me, there was restrictions on there, and when it come in front of the county, they ignored them, or whatever it is. What I want to know is there only one access to County Road 4 off of this thing?
I believe so.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mr. Stitch, there's one current driveway off of 4, which more than likely is going to end up going away.
And then everybody has to go out on one road?
Yeah, so all the lots will have a driveway to 83rd Avenue.
83rd Avenue?
Yep.
Is that there now, or has that been made since this been put together?
Each lot will have their own driveway, so there would be nine driveways.
To what? To a road that was put alongside of it?
Nope, to 83rd Avenue. Directly to 83rd Avenue.
Yeah, but is 83rd Avenue a public road now?
Yes, it's a dedicated public road, yes. That's the road going south off of 4.
It's right there where the corner is. It goes down off of 4 there.
Yep.
Goes down.
That's 83rd, yes.
Is that there present day, or is that going to be built?
That is presently there.
It's a township road.
Yes.
It's a township road, Carl.
Well, I don't believe. I know when I got back on the board, down from Fisher Hill there in that same area, they did the same thing. They put the county put a street in, and then ran 3 deals off of it. And now, how is we just want to make sure that ain't going to happen here, that they're going to have a road going alongside there, and it's been made public by the county, but it has never been put up to specs. Is that road blacktopped? Well, then it's in a public road, but otherwise they'd have to do that. But I just wanted to make sure that it didn't come out on the road like that one did down there. I believe, I don't know which avenue it is, but that one is made an avenue, it's gravel, nobody's going to take care of it. I don't understand how that ever went through, but I just wanted to make sure that this ain't going to be the same way. But if the road is there ready, then for going off of there, then it shouldn't be a problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here? If anybody else is here, please come up to the front already so we can keep it moving. Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
April Ousting. My address is 8381 Oak Road.
Okay.
So we just moved there a few months ago, and obviously we liked the look of it. So one of my bigger concerns is the looks. Please be sure to be
sure.
Is the looks of the outbuildings that are going to be there along the road. Of course, the additional traffic, which isn't as much of a concern. But additionally, I've learned from the neighbors over the course of the last few weeks that we've been there that there has been some theft and things on Rose's property previous, and it makes me a little anxious thinking that there might be these outbuildings there that might draw in more people. So those are my main concerns.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Again, as I said earlier, there's a lot going on in St. Wendell Township. Those are the kinds of things it's the best to plan for a storm before the storm hits. So if there's a concern with the outbuildings and things like that, there's things that the township can do to make sure that the looks and appearances of outbuildings meet a certain standard. And the time to do that is before a plat gets this far. probably would be the best scenario. Anybody else? There was no correspondence, Jennifer, right?
Correct.
Okay. It doesn't look like anybody's on Zoom. It looks like everyone that's here that wanted to speak spoke. So motion to close the public hearing would be in order.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. We close the public hearing.
Okay.
Seconded.
Motion's been made by Jason, second by Rich. Close the public hearing. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public hearing is closed. Discussion amongst planning commission members.
Question that I have, and maybe you can answer this, Jeff, being on the plating, or maybe it's for staff. So to the property owners concerned, Ken, to the south. Now, my understanding, when stormwater plans and management plans are done, it's to contain the water on the actual lot. So you can't, as part of that plan, just delineate that water or shift it towards the neighbors. Is my understanding of that accurate?
It is. And there was a lot of discussion about one identifying, because some of them, it's hard to see that it is a wetland. Yeah. And so there was a certain amount of discussion about how do you identify where they are and that they need to stay there. And I don't know how detailed, that's a big picture if you want to zero in further than that. But we did recognize that there was several wetlands that would be identified with signage or others that the property owners would be made aware of, that they can't alter those.
So to the potential being, if done properly, it actually may help the current situation as far as the flow of water is concerned. There's as likelihood of it improving the situation as there is of making it worse. It probably greater is the way I look at it based on my past experience, but if I'm missing something, let me know.
If the lots don't manage the water, it's going to be a problem for them.
Yeah.
And the other people, including the gentleman that spoke. So the property owners are going to want to contain the water.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any discussion?
I guess I had the same concern Jason had. If we do this and they do them properly, it should probably be improved downstream. And so that's...
Yes. Okay. Seeing none, we'll do the findings. Does the proposed plat conform to the county's comprehensive plan? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, yes, it does with land use and zoning ordinance number 439, sections 9.6 and 10.2.
Mr. Chair.
Jennifer?
The findings that we were using for the plat is the same as the CUPs. I apologize, they got in the packet wrong. So the ones in the staff report, which would match, Jeff, if you want to flip to item number 4, findings for scenic specialties. Flip back one page in your findings of fact packet.
Flip back in the findings?
Yeah.
Or in the
staff report.
Or were you reading from the staff report?
No, I'm given the findings.
Yeah, right. If you want to use the findings for item number 4, that would be great.
Okay.
And you guys use the ones in your packet. You're fine. Sorry about that.
Mr. Chair, we can also read them for you if you want.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, I think I had this discussion with Deb, and I know that sometimes staff thinks that I'm a little over anxious, but this is exactly why I had that discussion with her. Give me the findings. I'm the chair. I'll read the findings. Can someone give me a written copy? Does someone have a written copy? I can't find it maybe Shelley needs to help review some of these things. Or are they in the staff report? Just give me something that, well, I was going off of what she gave me here. So is this it? Yep. That's it? Here, you can have that back. I'll read this one. Okay. Let's pretend that all that didn't happen. We just did that for part of the show. Okay, let's do it over. Item number 1, is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman again. Yes, number 439, sections 9.6 and 10.2.
Number 2, does the proposal conform the comprehensive plan of the county? List the sections.
Mr. Chair, Jason, I'm sorry. Did you ask about the comprehensive plan?
The comprehensive plan.
Yeah, and I do believe it does under the living goals. Under section 2, manage the impacts of growth and development on the county's rural character and natural resources.
3, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood?
Mr. Chair, Ken Mossman here. I think it is because there's already, 3 or 4 houses beyond where these houses are going to build on the end of, because we drove all the way to the end of 85th or 83rd and turned around, and I guess if there's houses beyond it already, this would seem to me to be compatible.
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I'm a little concerned about the addition of traffic and the higher density in the area. I mean, it is going to change the existing neighborhood by having 7 new potential home sites. So I'm a little concerned about the compatibility.
I guess now that he's brought that up, wasn't there a deal a number of years ago that if a road was over 600 feet or whatever so long, it had to have another access off of a county road in case something would happen up in the beginning so they could get emergency vehicles?
See how good my memory is. Is it 1,325 feet?
1320 for a new cul-de-sac.
Oh, so, and this is
Sam
considered
Delano is
being
here.
there.
He'd say the same thing. He
Yeah.
remembers.
So
it
it's got to
as
be a
well.
quarter of a mile, and it must be 3/4 of a mile to the back of this property.
The end of this
to
one,
the end
yeah.
of the road.
Yep. But the road length limit in the subdivision ordinance applies to new constructed roads,
Okay.
yeah.
And again, I'm not minimizing that, but the discussion was from the county highway perspective, that traffic coming onto the county road, and they addressed it, but they weren't concerned about it coming onto the road. I'm not saying that that's legitimate or not, but it was discussed, and they didn't have an issue with it.
That would be no different than the road past my place is kind of a feeder road from all kinds of other roads, and they all come to there, and then they drive past on one county road or township road or whatever.
Plus, again, I hate to keep saying it, but this is St. Wendell Township, and you've got houses and businesses, and you've got everything. It's a free-for-all, so. 5, township or city input. St. Wendell Township recommended approval. Federal, state, local permits, there aren't any. There are permits for things, I guess. It's not federal. State and local permits are required. Environmental concerns, groundwater, surface water, air quality, wellhead, we talked about all those, and they're being addressed. Information submitted regarding property values, we did not receive anything. Public health, safety, traffic generations, we just talked about traffic generation. Public service of facilities, schools, parks, streets, utilities.
Mr.
The
Chair,
streets,
I'm also thinking in terms of schools. We may see a bump in student population. We can't predict how much, but it could produce an additional few or several students in the local schools.
Sure. And financial assurance required to guarantee anything.
Did we miss 4?
Yep, just gonna mention that.
4, you mean item number 4?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm on a roll. How has the applicant demonstrated the standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
The conditions as per the staff report.
Okay. Just so there's no confusion, Jennifer, I'll put this here then.
Yep, thank you.
Because you need that for the other item. So that completes the findings of fact. A motion would be in order for approval or denial.
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I'd make a motion we recommend approval with the proposed conditions. I do believe the conditions will address a lot of the concerns that are discussed or were discussed tonight.
I will second that.
Okay, motion is made by Jason, second by Ken to recommend approval. The county board meeting will be announced once all the plating requirements are met, and so there's not an actual date until those requirements are met. Motion made, seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
The recommendation is made 4-1. Okay, thank you, good luck.
Jason.
Jason was the,
Jason Wienerman.
Yep.
Item number 6, consider a request submitted by Bugby Family Properties, sections 4.8, 6.49, 10.223 for campground expansion. Jennifer?
Okay, this is a request for a conditional use permit to expand an existing campground in the R1 and R5 zoning district. This is in section 29 of Paynesville Township. It's at the corner of Crescent Ridge Road and Coronis Road Northwest. So this item has been before the Planning Commission in the past. Oh, it's been some time though. There was well, I won't go through all the history, but there was a conditional use permit approved in 2009 to do a 26-unit expansion. And then the following year, 2010, they had a modification to that layout and added 3 accessory structures. So that was the last time we've seen an expansion out there. And at this time, they're asking to add 49 units. It would also include a future caretaker cabin, an open-air pavilion, some storage sheds, and additional dock slips. So the property is near Lake Coronis. There is, they don't have a lot of lakeshore frontage there. Mainly it's the area where the docks are. And so all of the RV sites will be back a ways off the lake, beyond the wetland, as shown on the plan. The wetlands have all been delineated. The delineation is being reviewed. Access to the site, they're proposing a new access to this expansion area off of Coronis Road Northwest, which is on the west side of the development. And then they will also include a road that kind of connects up with the rest of the campground. So there will be through roads to provide for some traffic flow that way. Let's see. The density meets the ordinance requirements. The structure coverage within each of those RV sites will be limited to 800 square feet. As far as sewer and water supply, they have private wells out there, of course, and then they would have an on-site septic system. They currently are working with the state to determine if that's going to be a permit through the state or through the county. So there's a lot that goes into that, such as monitoring the flows, which they have done and provided to the state. And they're probably going to have some hydrologist investigation that needs to be done. Long story short, they're working with the state to determine if that's going to be a state or county permit for that septic system. As far as the docking goes, they are proposing some more dock slips, which are shown on the plan. And in the end, they're going to end up with 108 dock slips is what they're proposing. So that's actually less than 1 per unit out there. Let's see. The natural vegetation, the short impact zone meets the requirement of having a minimum of 40% in its natural state. That is met. They do have a stormwater management plan has been developed to show how the stormwater runoff on site will be accommodated. And it's been reviewed. Some changes are needed, but it's going through the process of review and approval for that stormwater management plan. Parking is good. They show 3 parking spaces per RV site. So they're proposing to have 2 spots in each RV site, and then they have several spaces they show on the plan for the overflow for the 3rd parking spot that's needed. They are proposing 3 new accessory structures, and those accessory structures, what Mr. Bugby does out there is each of them will be divided up into several smaller units, so then the RV tenants can just rent a space, kind of a slip in that storage unit so they can have room for their extra stuff. So that would be part of this request. If the Planning Commission recommends approval, we have a number of conditions that we're recommending. In relation to stormwater management, they'll need an approved plan. They'll need to submit a financial guarantee to ensure that plan gets implemented before they start any ground disturbance out there. And erosion control stormwater management plan shall be implemented before we would allow them to start renting out these additional sites. And that includes the last expansion that they did. The stormwater plan wasn't implemented entirely per the plan. So they've shown what they did and how that still meets the county stormwater requirements. So we need to review that and just make sure everything works. So that's part of this approval. Before they could start renting out any of these new sites, we need assurance the previous stormwater management system is compliant, and then also this new one. And then those stormwater facilities have to be maintained in perpetuity. And then before we would release that financial guarantee, they'd have to have an engineer review it and provide an as-built drawing showing it was built per the approved plan. The vegetation within the 75-foot lake setback shall be preserved and maintained in its natural state. Deadfall may be removed. Trees greater than 5 inches in diameter may be limbed up to 10 feet off the ground. Trees 5 inches in diameter or less may not be limbed up. Except box elder and Chinese elm, the removal of exotic species such as buckthorn or purple loosestrife or noxious species such as poison ivy or prickly ash is allowed. A vegetative alteration approval is required before they would do any vegetation removal for those exotics or deadfall. We'd want to just see a plan and approve that first. Screening, so we're requesting a minimum 50-foot buffer of trees and vegetation be maintained on the north, west, and south property lines. If you were out there, you saw it's very well screened naturally from roads and neighboring property lines, so we're requesting at least a 50-foot buffer be maintained. Signage, any new sign for the expansion shall comply with the county zoning ordinance, which means 10 feet from property lines, 10 feet from the right-of-way, can't be more than 32 square feet per surface, no more than 2 surfaces, and no more than 10 feet tall. And then also requesting aquatic invasive species signage be placed at the boat launch by June 1st. The docks shall be installed according to the approved dock plan. For the septic system, before any ground disturbance occurs, we need that determination from the state as to who the permitting authority is. And if it's a local county permit, then we will require a design be submitted before they would start ground disturbance out there, because we just need to make sure the area where the septic system is going to go is identified and protected. Let's see, wetlands, an approved wetland delineation is required. The requirements of the Minnesota Wetland Conservation Act shall be met, including proper erosion control to protect wetlands and not exceeding the de minimis exemption allowed for draining or filling wetlands unless a wetland replacement plan is approved. As far as road access goes, the access that connects the existing resort to the expansion, on the plans it's called a temporary access, but the condition we're proposing is that it shall remain open and unobstructed. Even if they don't want people going through there all the time, it needs to remain open and unobstructed for use in emergency situations. The owner shall obtain and comply with Minnesota DNR water appropriation permit if required for this size development. And I did speak with Nikki at the DNR today. She felt this size probably is not going to trigger that, but Mr. Bugby will just need to chat with her and provide her some detail on the water flow out there so she can determine if that's needed. The trigger for that is 10,000 gallons per day and 1 million gallons per year of water use. All lighting within the resort shall comply with section 7.15 of the county zoning ordinance, and the caretaker cottage shall be used for caretaker or be licensed as a rental if it is going to be rented out. Those are the conditions I have. I do have some public correspondence when we get to that point.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Members, if you visited the site, say yes if I call your name, no if you did not. Rich?
Yes, I did.
Jason?
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
Ken? Jason? Okay. And just for transparency, for the record, I want to say that I leased one of these docking sites at his other current sites. So that's just to be transparent, number one. Number two, I probably see more than what half the people that are talking here, what that submitted the comments, I probably see it more than most. So it's a good thing because I'm aware of what's going on there. Applicant introductions, please state your name for the record, Paul, and you, and address.
So I'm Paul Bugbee from Painesville, 29659 Queen Bee Lane in Painesville, Minnesota 56362. My son Benjamin is behind me. My father-in-law is here too. Thanks, Raj. And John Blinker here is with Westwood Land Planners, who's done a lot of the work for us.
And you'll have to see your name and address just so we have your voice.
John Blanker with Westwood, 3701 12th Street North, St. Cloud.
Okay. Do either one of you, John or Paul, want to add anything to the staff report?
If I may, I'll be brief. But just a little history. Bugbee Ave Resort began 100 years ago in 1920. I'm the third generation owner, and hopefully my son will be a fourth generation operator, owner. In its heyday, Lake Coronis had 14 resorts. Today it has one resort, and that's the Bugbee Ave Resort. Back in the early 70s, my father began the development of King Bee Camp, located approximately 1/4 mile west of our resort. King Bee Camp now has 75 seasonal sites. We enjoy 100% occupancy all of the time, with a waiting list of individuals hoping to get in. Presently, there are 65 individual parties on our waiting list. I'm proposing to expand our existing seasonal park with an additional 49 sites adjacent to the existing park, just west of the park on 25 acres, which I own. I wrote my comments here. It's always interesting how people who can afford to own lake property react to people who can't afford to own lake property. Apparently, once you own a place at the lake, you're not very receptive to letting others enjoy the lake, as evidenced by some of the comments that I just saw today by my neighbors and friends. I'm a bit dismayed to hear some of their words, especially those that attack the nature of my business. We maintain consistently 70 to 75% repeat business at a resort year after year. And again, King Bee Camp remains 100% occupied. I'm not aware at all of any of their complaints, so I'm quite surprised at it. I did have a neighbor a year ago who was concerned about my storing my floating docks down in the bay there. We've talked about it. They seemed to be receptive to it. They were not one who submitted a written comment. We're trying to abide by all of the rules and the regulations to put in this additional 49 sites. When Jennifer talked about the storage sheds, we do not allow individual storage sheds at each of the sites because we don't want this potpourri of different sheds to clutter the space. So the 3 storage shed buildings that have been presented, each storage shed is 4 by 8 foot in space. So they will have 5 on each side, which would be, 20 by 8 feet, and some of them will be back to back. So it would be 40 by, be 20 by 16 feet, right? But there's 3 of those buildings that are being proposed. We deliberately, you saw the road that we've cut in off of the west, off of Northwest Lake Coronis Road. That is going to be the main thoroughfare for people to access this addition. As Jennifer alluded, there will be a road that will go through or into the existing park. That is essentially for golf cart traffic. All seasonal RV people have golf carts. And but we don't want to have that traffic as a regular flow through there, so we cut in a road on the northwest side. I don't know what else I can tell you. I have talked to the township about that road. They have ordered a 30-foot culvert for me to put in on the ditch where the driveway will come in. And other than that, I guess I'll just take your questions if you have any.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions now from members?
Jason Crone, I do have one. We can ask an hour later. Looking at the plans, seeing what in the proposed conditions, a 50-foot screen, it looks like if that was extended to like 75 or 100 feet, that it, from what I could tell, I didn't think it impacted the plans. Maybe it does. But I was wondering if there's any ability to increase that as far as a condition to deal with some of the concerns that others had regarding noise or so on and so forth.
Well, I know I almost would have to look. The May property, which is south of the proposed development, we have deliberately kept a buffer of trees and whatever wild is growing there, so you don't even see through there. I haven't measured that, but absolutely, I'm happy to do 75 or 100 feet. And then to the west, to the west, Pat Flanders' property, the closest that any RV would be to his property would be at least 400 feet.
Yeah. And maybe your plan isn't to cut any of it anyway, and it's irrelevant, but I thought that was one way to just deal with some of those concerns.
Yeah, right from the start, I wanted to maintain a buffer. I haven't measured it exactly, except to look at the plans. I know from the west we are quite a few feet. I don't know if you remember from even the roadway coming in. Yeah. And I haven't measured it from the south side where the Mays property is.
Okay.
But
okay.
You can tell me how much. We'll do it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the only comment I would have on that, it looks like the stormwater basin on the south side might be within 100 feet.
Okay.
So we could go with, you could obviously talk about it, but go with 75 or 100 feet, except for the area for the basin or whatever you come up with.
Cool.
That would be from the road, not necessarily their house, but
From
we
the
could even keep it from the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, part of that, their driveway is on my property, but we put a log across the trail, and they have cameras there. I'm not aware that any people have gone up and down their driveway, so I was really surprised to see that.
Thank you.
I think we're all seasoned enough to know that sometimes when comments are made, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Paul does own the property. Some of the houses that are saying concerns, they're 500 plus feet off of Lake Cronus Road, so they're already set back.
Yep.
But, if you're, there's several agendas, I would guess, that are going on. And of course, if you've got those agendas, then you kind of start.
I totally get it. I totally get it. I was going to look for some things that, if they didn't impact the overall plans, that would be some things to quell some of those concerns, regardless of their intentions. So.
Sure. Any other questions now, or we'll go to the public hearing? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here or on Zoom that would like to share some comments? Please come to the front, to the podium.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Angie Berg, I do have someone that's going to be calling in. I'm going to call her from my phone since the WebEx isn't functioning. Her name is Carla Havemeyer, so I'm going to call her now.
Okay. And then while you're doing that, again, is there anyone here from the public that wants to say something? Please come up. Hello. I'm not seeing no one there.
Carla, Angie Berg, Stearns County, we have you on the speaker.
Ready to speak?
Yes.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, this is Jack and Carla Havemeyer. We own 15082 and 15056 King B Drive properties. So basically, the camp is right behind us on both of our properties. We're one of the closest neighbors to the King B camp and have been there for many years. We want to attest to the fact that although the campers have a good time, there are not late nights of loud parties. The campgrounds are in heavily wooded areas, which minimizes the sound. Most of the activity is on the weekends, and the camp is desolate during the week. Also, most of the campers are mature adults and have respect for each other and their permanent neighbors. Paul Bugby keeps the existing camp clean and promptly takes care of any issues. Mr. Bugby has always given much thought to his many projects, and this one is no different. His business activities and presence is good for the economy, the community, and the lake, and the surrounding area. And we support this expansion. Thank you.
Thank you. One last time, is there anyone here or on Zoom that would want to say something? If not, we'll close the public hearing.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I do
Oh,
have
I'm
some
sorry, the
letters.
correspondence, yes. Which we did all receive copies of, but we'll still enter them into the record.
Okay, and I'll, yeah, you received the
Just,
copies. I
you
can
don't have to read them
summarize
word for word, just do the highlight because
Sure.
we did get copies, and we'll enter the copies into the record.
Sure. Yep, so the first letter here is from Patrick and Amy Flanders, stating that they are concerned about late nights and loud parties around campfires, stating if it's zoned R5, which would allow for approximately 2 homes, which they wouldn't have a problem with, but concerned with the campground expansion. They're concerned, their main points are the marina and destroying cattails, the ravine that's out there, and they're concerned that that needs to be protected from potential erosion. They're concerned about sewage treatment from 42 campers compared to 2 homes. The ongoing expansion of the marina is not good for the lake. When they did a PUD development of Stonegate Lodge, it was more restrictive as to how many docks they could have, and they're concerned about the number of docks out there. And then lastly, they have a safety concern for traffic on the road. They are concerned about the golf carts driven by young people coming out onto the roads, driving over to the resort, and particular concern for the entrance onto the hill on Northwest Coronas Road, where visibility is limited and joins up with an already dangerous intersection for regular vehicle traffic. If you haven't made it out there, they are recommending you visit the site, which you all had done. He apologizes for not being able to be here in person, but he's under COVID protocol. Signed Patrick and Amy Flanders. And then a letter we received from members of the May Family Trust. This is the property directly south. In response to the request for the campground expansion, they strongly oppose it. They believe that the resort has a track record of poor upkeep and disregard for the neighboring lake properties. Concerns how it would impact their personal property, and also the overall aesthetic value of the area. Let's see. The proposed project has been underway over the past year, so they're concerned with the amount of clearing that's been done without an approved permit or alerting the neighbors. The concern that the construction included cutting into the adjacent neighbor's private driveway and using it without permission. The floating docks are cut loose, so they have concern with the floating docks. Those are cut loose from the summer location and then floated around into the bay, yeah. So concern about that being done without discussion with the neighbors and taking up a large portion of the bay, and that the hazard that creates when the ice comes out and then they float around the lake. A large pipe sticking 2 feet above water was left in the bay in the dock location this entire summer. Also concerned about pontoons that have washed ashore into the bay and sat there for days. We not only care about the direct impact Bugby Family Properties LLC campground expansion would have on our adjacent property, but also the future perception and reputation of Lake Coronas. This letter serves as a strong voice opposing any type of expansion to Bugby Family Properties, signed the May family. And there were some photos included. And then also received a letter from the DNR late yesterday. We had sent them the plan for comment, primarily asking for comments on the dock plan. So the comment from this DNR states that They're not limiting the extent of the shoreline impacts to one specific area for docks, but rather they spread it out. This increases the impact to the lake ecology, and continuing to add to the length of the docks only exacerbates the impacts. It's always better to limit the extent of the docking area as much as possible to one central location. And then she spoke with the regional ecologist and had some comments on environmental review. Their thought was that the campground meets the threshold for triggering an EAW due to it being 49 units plus 1 unit for the caretaker cabin. That hits 50, so they felt it should require an EAW. And also felt that the dock expansion would require an EAW because it is taking up 20,000 or more total square feet. So what Angie and I had done is looked through the environmental review rule, and we provided our response to the DNR. The RV expansion, and we know that 50 units requires an EAW. We were not counting the caretaker cabin as a unit. But furthermore, 12 of the units are actually outside of shoreland, and the rule speaks to 50 or more units in shoreland. So therefore, that part doesn't apply. The dock expansion, that part applies to a marina. For the construction or expansion of a marina that results in 20,000 or more square feet increase in water surface area used temporarily or permanently for docks. That in a marina, the definition of a marina is an inland or offshore commercial mooring facility for the concentrated mooring of 7 or more watercraft or seaplanes wherein commercial ancillary services common to marinas are provided. So the question becomes, are commercial ancillary services provided at the marina? Because if so, then it appears that they'll meet that trigger. So the comment was made when we were out on site that the slips won't be rented anymore once the expansion occurs, and they're going to be used by the resort owners. So I just wanted to confirm if that's the plan.
The King Bee campers.
Yep, the King Bee campers, sorry, yep.
Correct.
So if they won't be rented out, is that correct, Ange? Yeah. Then it wouldn't be providing ancillary services, therefore it's not a marina, therefore the EAW isn't triggered.
And there's no other services there? There's no gasoline or anything else like that?
Okay. Yeah. So those are the comments I got from the public and the DNR.
There isn't even electricity there. So there's no services. Okay. Anything else?
I would make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Ken seconds it, so Jason moves to close the public hearing. Ken seconds it. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public hearing is closed. Further discussion? Hearing none. We'll do the findings. Number 1, let's try these. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Is that right?
Yep, you're right.
We got it. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance?
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I believe it is under land use and zoning ordinance, number 439, sections 4.8, 6.48, 10.2.23.
Number 2, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I believe it does, under a variety of the planks. So the living goal, plank number 2, manage impacts of growth and development of the county's rural character. There was one under the tourism plank. Business goals, action number 3, acknowledge tourism's economic value and the prospective contribution of this industry to the county. And then there's one under water quality, lakeshore goals, which is number 2, encourage shoreline protection, and then number 3 is discourage the alteration of shorelands. and also looking at number 8, which is evaluating lakeshore housing projects.
Number 3 is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood.
Mr. Chair, Jason Crone, I think you could, make an argument both ways on this, but for the most part, yes, it's consistent. There's an existing campground adjacent to this. It's set back into the woods. So with the exception of maybe a new road and a couple of additional dock slips, it's consistent to what's already there.
How has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in an ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, we have a variety of conditions included in the staff report. And I would like to propose changing condition number 3, which is screening, to expand that to the 75 feet.
75, I think, is more than sufficient. It's just, additional screening, if it doesn't impact, it's something to just create an additional barrier, which is always good with neighbor conflicts.
So 75 feet with the exception of the stormwater.
Okay. And I would add that demonstrated the standards, criteria that would be are going to be followed, satisfied. I think 100 years record of a lot of stuff has happened at Bugby Hive Resort over the last 10 years, Shoreline and others, and everything's been met. So that certainly would be pertinent as well. 5 other issues pertinent to this matter. Township, city input. I don't think that they officially said anything, but I've talked to them. Paul said he talked to them. They have nothing but support for what's going on. Federal, state, local permits, the DNR is involved, the county is involved. I don't think there's nothing federal, is there?
No.
I don't believe so. Environmental concerns, groundwater, surface water, air quality, wellhead. We've addressed those all, in my opinion. Information submitted regarding the impact property values, nothing. Public health, safety, traffic generations. We've talked about the traffic generations and the trails. Paul's suggesting through the development to keep the golf carts off the road. Plus, is that a minimum maintenance road? Or what do they call that? Maybe the road that comes off of Lake Cronus Road that goes into the resort, I forget. If it isn't that one, it's the next one that the township's identified. What do they call them? Not minimum maintenance, but low maintenance, or
Kingby Drive coming into township does keep that plowed.
Yeah.
Actually up to my marina.
But there's a classification that the township has. What's that called? That it's minimum traffic. They've got them posted. I can't remember.
Rustic Road?
No, that could be that rustic road,
Those in that
which
area
designates low traffic roads, which then there's more pedestrian.
It is a rustic road.
Yeah, that's what it is. They classified some of those roads on purpose to, traffic is slower, less obvious. Public health, safety, traffic generations, we talked on that. Public service facilities, including schools, parks, streets, utilities, again, nothing really. Financial assurance required.
Yes.
There was, and that's identified. And then again, just pertinent information, 4th generation. Paul's mother just passed away in the last year. They've been there for a long time. They run a class operation, and just like farming, years ago there would be 300 acre farms. Today there are 2,000 acre farms. Years ago there was 14 resorts. Today there's 1. Yeah. And another relevant fact, Lake Cronus I think is 3,200 acres if I'm remembering it right. So it certainly is a large lake. It can handle things. So.
I would add on the business goal side that it's tougher and tougher to run a family resort business, which was a predominantly common business in Minnesota years ago. So this seems like a really good way to make that viable for the future with minimal impact.
Mr. Bugby hit the nail right on the head in his first sentence. All of the people who have property on lakes, seem to not want the people who can't afford property on lakes to be on what they call their lake or my lake. And I've been fighting this issue for 7 years, and it just keeps going. So that's.
Okay.
With that, I'd make a motion to recommend approval there's 11 proposed conditions.
I will second that.
Okay, motion's been made by Jason, seconded by Rich. Recommend approval of the county board at their October 26th meeting for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The recommendation is passed. Thank you. Good luck. Item number 7, the minutes, August 19th and September 16th. We can do one motion with that, can't we? Yep. So we'll do one motion for those 2 monthly meetings.
I move to approve them.
Ken moves to approve.
Second.
Jason seconds. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Other discussion? Anything staff has? Members? Okay, hearing none, motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Jason moves.
Second.
Ken seconds. Adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah. Well, but they all left then.